You know, we've all heard it, right? A parent or teacher praises a child for being so easy, for not causing a fuss, for just being agreeable. And it's always meant as a huge compliment. But what if I told you that behind that praise, there's often a much deeper, more complex story going on? Today, we're going to explore the hidden world of the easy child.
Does that sound familiar at all? I'm guessing that hits home for some of you. If you were that kid, you know that being easy, well, it wasn't always as simple as it looked from the outside. It often came with a whole set of unwritten rules you had to follow.
So today, we are unpacking this exact persona. We're going to start by looking at the unspoken deal that an easy child makes with the world, and then we'll dive right into 5 key traits that tend to show up in adulthood because of it. So why does a child even take on this role? It's definitely not a conscious choice. Really, it's a brilliant, intuitive adaptation to their environment. It's a survival strategy for feeling safe, secure, and most importantly, loved.
Deep down, somewhere in their developing mind, a fundamental rule starts to form. It's this quiet logic that's going to dictate their behavior for years and years to come. And the goal? Well, the goal is simple. It's universal. It's the foundation for pretty much everything. That deep need for connection, for approval, for love. And there it is. That's the bargain. Love isn't just given freely. It's conditional. And the condition is, you have to suppress your needs. You can't be a burden. You have to be easy. This becomes the core belief that shapes their entire world. In a way, it's like the child learns to manage the adult's feelings by making sure they themselves are never the source of any stress.
But here's the thing. That childhood strategy, it doesn't just disappear when you grow up. Nope. It solidifies into a set of personality traits that can be incredibly challenging in adulthood. So let's walk through 5 of the most common ones. All right, first up, hyper-independence. Now, this looks like a superpower from the outside, but it's often rooted in a very deep-seated fear. This isn't just about being capable, it's about being compulsively capable. You're the one shouldering every single burden alone. The idea of asking for help feels like you're breaking that #1 childhood rule, don't be a burden. So relying on someone else triggers this enormous wave of guilt, maybe even a feeling of failure. You would literally rather burn yourself out doing everything than risk being an inconvenience to a single person. Next up, and this one's very closely related, is a pattern of chronic people-pleasing. You can think of this as the social version of being low maintenance.
You see, the easy child learns really fast that their value comes from being agreeable and helpful. So, as an adult, this turns into an internal radar that is constantly scanning for what other people need. You become an expert at anticipating needs, often before anyone even says a word. And your own needs? They get automatically pushed to the back of the line. Your sense of self-worth gets completely tangled up in how useful you can be to everybody else.
Okay, number 3. This one happens on the inside, and man, it can be profoundly disorienting. It's a fundamental disconnect from your own emotional world.
I mean, think about it. If your primary job as a kid was to not have needs, what were you supposed to do with inconvenient emotions like anger, sadness, or disappointment? Well, you learned to become a master at pushing them down. But over time, you don't just hide them from other people. You start hiding them from yourself. You can literally lose the ability to identify what you're feeling. I'm fine becomes the default answer, not because you're lying, but because you genuinely might not know.
And that brings us to number 4, which is a really painful paradox. Even when you know you need a break, you just can't seem to take one without feeling terrible about it. At its core, self-care is just about tending to your own needs. But for the former easy child, doing that feels like a direct violation of that core rule to be low maintenance. Resting feels lazy. Spending money on yourself feels frivolous. Putting your own well-being first just feels selfish. And this creates this awful cycle of pushing yourself to the brink of burnout and then feeling guilty for needing the time to recover. And finally, our 5th trait. If you were praised your whole life for never causing trouble, you learn to fear friction in any and every form. What happens is that conflict gets wired in your brain as being a problem. And since your whole survival strategy was built on not being a problem, you'll do almost anything to avoid it. You might stay silent in a meeting, agree with things you don't actually believe, or just abandon your own needs in a relationship, all in the name of keeping things smooth. You become a professional peacekeeper, but often it comes at the expense of your own truth.
Okay, I know seeing all 5 of those traits laid out can be a lot to take in. But the point here isn't to criticize yourself. It's to recognize a pattern. These aren't character flaws. They are brilliant but outdated survival strategies. And this just captures the core issue perfectly. The very strategy that helped you feel safe and loved as a child is now the exact thing that leads to feeling exhausted, resentful, and completely invisible as an adult. You've become so good at hiding your needs that other people, and maybe even you, can forget they even exist. And that right there, that's the crucial shift. Acknowledging this pattern is the first, most powerful step you can take toward change. It allows you to ask a brand new question. Not, how can I be easy to love, but what would it look like to be loved for all of who I am? My needs, my opinions, all of it. What would it look like to finally, truly be seen?